Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kuvas and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the latest happenings of the World Baseball Classic, as well as the latest roster cuts for your Minnesota Twins. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning into Men for the Win. My name is David Kuvas. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. Dan, we are legitimately 2 weeks away from baseball games that actually matter when the Twins open the season against the Baltimore Orioles. Are you excited? Can you feel it? Does it feel like it's coming this fast, Dan?
I'm going to be honest, we had like 65-mile-an-hour winds here yesterday and like snow falling. So no, it doesn't feel like baseball season just yet, but I will welcome it. I think it's going to be 70 next week, so that'll feel pretty good.
Yeah, sadly in Minnesota, it's going to be like -2, and we're maybe getting 10 inches of snow on Sunday. It's a little bit
Look
confusing.
at us talking about the weather. This is like true Minnesotans, right? Like we have to talk about the weather in March. And in any month, really, the weather is what we can talk about.
Well, Dan, speaking of Minnesota... It's happening, Dan. The Vikings have brought in someone to compete with 9 himself, JJ
Why do you call
McCarthy.
him 9? Is that when people in Minnesota, they don't even refer to him by his name? They just call him by his number?
You didn't follow that, Dan? It's his whole alter ego that he turns into 9 when the game's on the line, and then he threw like 38 interceptions against the Packers in that game.
That's weird. That's weird. Do you like turn into a number at any point? Like, no, you're just David.
No, I've never turned into a number, Dan. I know I'm not a 10. I can tell you that much. But anyway, I know that we're a baseball podcast, but it is sort of exciting to see a guy.
Well, you'd think we were an F1 podcast after listening to you and Hogs ramble on about F1. I was ready to just, I don't know, turn off the podcast after a little while. Hogue salvaged it by bringing it back around to baseball, which I appreciated. You weren't doing that, though. You would have just talked about F1 the whole half hour.
Happily, Dan. F1 is very exciting this season, no question. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in here. If you're a longtime listener, thanks so much for your continued support. If you're a new listener, thanks so much for checking us out. This will not be our typical format. Normally, we have an episode after each Twins series where we have segments and we talk about the series and different ins and outs of that. This is going to be a little bit more free-flowing. We're going to talk about the World Baseball Classic. We're also going to talk about...
Are we ever?
The latest Twins roster moves here as we get a little bit of clarity as far as who's going to break spring training with the club. Hard to say, Dan. But I do want to say, again, I'd be remiss not to promote our Patreon. We've had some more folks join on. Absolutely love to see it. Again, you get additional content of movie reviews that Dan and I do in a show called Picture of Record. No Twin stuff is ever going to be behind a paywall. But if you click the link in the Patreon, $1 a month gets you access to that additional content. Really helps our show here on this side. Just we're looking at a few different options about how we can improve this product moving forward, and we would love your support to continue to do so.
So you brought up Kyler Murray. Cool. We'll see, right? I'm sure Hogs would say that he would roast us for this signing right now in any celebration about Kyler Murray. And anybody who's ever had Kyler Murray on their fantasy football team knows that he will let you down. So I'm not as excited maybe as you might be. You also have a note though on the Savannah Bananas, David. Please lead us off here.
Yeah, so I talked about this last episode a little bit, that I was somewhat pleased with the way the front office of the Twins handled this situation, where I was able to get 4 seats to a Savannah Bananas game. I was very excited. It was a little spendy, but I was excited about it. Well, they didn't sell out through the season ticket holder. I think they'll sell out through the lottery or whatnot. But so I got an opportunity to buy 4 additional seats. Okay, so I'm very excited about that. But that has also put this whole dilemma about who I'm taking. And I think there's certain people in my life I have to offer the tickets to first, just to like make sure that nobody's upset that they didn't get a chance.
This isn't like you're signing up people to be a groomsman in your wedding.
Oh man, David. It's rough, Dan. Yeah, it's like who's going to be stuck being the ushers,
Okay, I just brought this up with my students this week, and I said, nothing's more humbling than when you want to be, first of all, you want to be the best man. right? But then settling for a groomsman, okay. But when you're an usher, I mean, you're like, that's like sixth chair in the trumpet section. Like, that's not great. Nobody wants to be that. Let's be in the seventh or eighth outfielder in the Twins rotation, right? Doesn't feel good. So how are you going to pick who gets to go with you?
So I think blood before water is how I have to start, right? So I have to start with my family and then sort of work out in concentric circles. But this is what I wanted to say. So we have a life group at our church that we go to each week with a group of families that meet together. And one of the families has 2 young boys. And the thing is, I didn't want to offer the tickets to them because I was nervous that what if not everybody could go, or who's going to fight because there's a sister involved as well. It's a whole thing, right? But so I'm telling these boys this, that like, hey, I only had a few tickets. I'm so sorry, that I couldn't get my hands on tickets to bring you guys. And so then they start talking about who we think is going to win the World Series. And it's like, well, it's probably going to be the Dodgers from the NL, obviously. And then, from the AL, it's a little bit more open field. It's a little hard to say. Well, so one of these boys says, well, if the Twins make the World Series, since I didn't get to go to the Savannah Bananas, if it's the Twins versus the Dodgers, will you take me to a World Series game? And I said, you know what? Yes, if that happens, I will take you to a World Series game if it's the Twins versus the Dodgers, which there's 50% of that equation, Dan, that's not going to happen. But, okay, his brother, very wisely, I'll say, he says, well, hang on. If anybody else makes the World Series besides the Dodgers, but the Twins still make the World Series, I want to get to go to a World Series game with you. So, Dan, that's my question to you right now, before the season has started. If you had to take either the Dodgers or the field from the NL, who are you taking?
I take the field every time in these situations, right? Like when Tiger Woods was on his run and it was basically Tiger versus the field in these. Yeah. I'm going to go with the field because I'm going to hope that there's a little level of parity in baseball that we don't maybe appreciate as much, that the Dodgers are just a product of randomness more than a rigged system. So I'm going to go with the field here.
It's hard to look at that lineup, Dan, and come away thinking that, oh, yeah, this is definitely rigged. This is...
On any given day, though, as we're seeing in the World Baseball Classic, David, anyone can win on any day in baseball.
Okay, so let's shift into World Baseball Classic news here, Dan. So first of all, Ohtani hits a grand slam in Japan's blowout against Chinese Taipei. Of course he does. I don't know what you want me to say on that. You have any thoughts about your man, Ohtani?
Love it. He's not my man. He's Hogs' man, right? My man is Aaron Judge, who let down the United States. And we will get to that as well in just a little bit.
Absolutely. And then there's this really cool story coming out of your beloved Czechia. How are we supposed to say this now? Czechia. I can't say
Czechia. The Czech Republic. We'll just call it the Czech Republic. Yeah.
Perfect. So they kept it really close against Japan. They ended up losing 9-0, but like they made it through the majority of the game. Super close.
You don't. It's not close when it's 9-0, David.
No, Dan, they kept it close, and then it just got away from them in the end. There.
It got away. At the
but
end.
There's this great story here. So it's Andre Satoria. He's a full-time electrician, Dan. Okay, and he pitched 4 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 3 Ks, no earned runs. This guy's out there putting lights in the ceiling, and he just comes in and shuts down a Japan lineup, which is very likely going to be in the final of the World Baseball Classic, Dan.
Well, that is pretty cool. I'll grant you that. And then there was some drama with Randy Arozarena and Cal Raleigh, they're Seattle teammates here. Something with a handshake, David. Can you explain this?
So Arozarena comes up to the plate, and Cal's behind the plate for the USA, and Randy puts out his hand for like a handshake, like, hey man, good to see you. And Cal was like, nah. Like he just wouldn't shake his hand because of, the spirit of competition or whatever.
Competition, yeah.
And then Randy got asked about it, and it was really hard to tell because there's a language barrier there. It's hard to tell whether he was actually offended or whether he's just sort of, being a little bit facetious or building it up or whatnot. And then Cal Raleigh got asked about it, and he's like, oh, there's no bad blood, there's no beef. I don't know, Dan. Like, I think that there might be a little something there, a little bit of tinge of unfriendliness maybe now between those two.
No, I think you're wearing your tinfoil hat. I think it's all right. I think it's just some friendly international competition between guys who may or may not be from the countries that they're playing for.
I'm pretty sure both of those guys are from the countries that they're playing for, though.
Okay, all right, fair enough. It's not like their great-grand uncle or something like that.
No, I think this is legitimate here in this instance.
Okay, right. Well, I appreciate that.
But so let's talk about Team USA for a second, Dan.
Oh, shall we?
Do you want to set it up for us, the whole system of what's happened?
Well, so this is funny to me because you would think that as the manager of a team in a competition like this, that you would know the scenarios that you're facing, right? So like you would know when you've clinched. Like this is a thing I know from my fantasy football league. Like I run many scenarios here to be able to tell the owners in our league knowledgeably and comfortably whether, what their circumstances are. Mark DeRosa, who goes on the MLB Network, and this is funny because he works for the MLB Network too on the side. It's not even on the side. That's his gig. This is the side hustle, right? Is managing Team USA. And he claimed later that he misspoke. But and this is well broken down in a commentary on the Athletic, that basically he thought that they had already clinched advancing into the quarterfinals before the game against Italy, and they had some celebrations late into the night after beating Mexico. Now, you brought to my attention what somebody surely would have brought to Mark DeRosa's attention, that it was very mathematically possible for the USA to miss. It's like he forgot they had more games to be played. And so he goes on the air, and then he goes and he basically plays like the B team, in so much as the USA has a B team against Italy's A team, right? Italy is bringing out their stars, right? Vinny Pasquantino and friends are really putting up a fight here. This is baffling to me. Now, the USA ends up coming out of this, basically the USA loses to Italy 8-6 in a valiant comeback attempt after the 6th inning, right? Take it from there, David. This is fascinating to me.
Well, the funniest part about this is MLB deleted the interview where he's basically talking about how he wants to get some guys off their feet and how some of them are hungover from the night before. Which, bold statement, I'd say, for a guy not understanding. But I kind of want to walk you through my realization of what's happening, right? So I get home, it's Tuesday night, I throw on the game, and I'm thinking, in my mind, they'd already clinched also. And so I'm checking the standings for the other pools because I want to know if my Netherlands are going to get through, right? So I'm looking at the standings and I see that the Netherlands, oh no, they're not going to make it. That's kind of a bummer. And so then I look at the results for our game and I'm like wondering, okay, well, what's going to happen here? And I start to look at these standings and I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I was looking at these tiebreakers earlier and I started to look at this and I said, this might not be good. And so I sent you a text and I'm like, am I looking at these standings right? If the USA loses this game, that could be bad. Right? And so then I'm on X, I'm like trying to sort this out, that I'm like, wait, hang on guys, this is not so good. But just me realizing this in real time in the way, like, because I didn't see anything on Twitter, like I was just like, the order of events that happened, whereas like this was very much just came upon me like, this is not good. This is not good.
So anyway, the USA gets bailed out because the next day, after this complicated scenario sets out, right? The simplest one is that Italy beats Mexico, and they do. And Italy beats them, roundly. It was like, 8-1, 9-1 or something like that. So the USA advances. Was there a part of you, though, that wanted the USA to not advance here out of spite?
I don't know how to answer this question, Dan, because here's the thing. I had a hard time cheering for Team USA anyway, because it's so hard, because you're like, oh man, they have all the stars. This is like cheering for the Yankees, kind of. And who doesn't love cheering for the underdog, right? Like, that's the big bit. Right. Like, you love cheering for the underdog, absolutely. Well, so now I'm like got another reason, Dan, to not cheer for Team USA because one, they're not the underdog, and two, they're morons, apparently, that they didn't understand how.
Well, they're led by a moron, at least.
Can you imagine? Well, no, you can't just put all the blame on the manager here because the players did not one player pay attention to the pool play and the head-to-head, like all
so
of
their
the
job,
different.
Stay in your lane, Aaron Judge, right? Aaron Judge's job is to play the outfield and hit home runs, not to worry about tiebreakers or shit. This is the one pitch at a time.
For Dan's Judge love.
Like, players are there to play, and managers are there to manage, and nobody was there apparently to look at the standings and do some basic mathematics.
I think what happened though, Dan, I think when they went down like 6-0 or whatever it was, somebody must have showed them a phone and it was like, hey guys, I don't think you realize that you need to win this game. And then they like really started trying and they're like, right. Oh no, what have we done? Which is just like, it's sort of like, when you were playing basketball with your dad when you were growing up and like your dad maybe let you score one or two too many. And then he's like really having to play hard. He's like throwing elbows now just to make sure that he still can show that he's beating his son at basketball. It's just like that, Dan, where Team USA was like, oh man, this might actually happen. I got to start trying.
Well, speaking of things that might actually happen, David, it's going to warm up. It's going to be springtime soon. And it's just the time now to start thinking about your lake life, right? Because it's no secret that being on the lake is a great way to live. But when you find yourself in a busy boat, a cramped pontoon where everyone has brought their own giant cooler, this is the moment you realize you need an aqueduct from Rave Sports. Don't settle for the weaker option from the other guys, because if you have a Lily, you're just being silly. The aqueduct from Rave is the goat of the float. Unlike those saggy, hard-to-roll-up competition, the aqueduct blows up easily. It's the perfect 10x10 size and is just as sturdy as the dock you walked out to your boat on. So what are you waiting for? Give your pontoon the water patio it always wanted. Pick up an aqueduct at ravesports.com. And remember, use promo code PULLTAB for 20% off your order. Rave Sports, make waves.
So Team USA does advance. They will take on Canada in the quarterfinals tomorrow night at 7 on Fox, which also, I didn't even know prior to this there was a Fox Sports 2. I'm like that sounds made up. It sounds like ESPN
like the
Ocho. I'm like looking all over the place. I'm like, I don't even get Fox Sports 2. You have to like subscribe to a separate service. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd love to see the Venezuela game, but I guess I'm not going to see that because I'm not going to subscribe to Fox Sports 2.
I know. And to be honest, actually, if anything, this has drummed up more support. Like for the World Baseball Classic, certainly more attention. I think more people are watching now because of the debacle here of Mark DeRosa. A couple other things I wanted to bring up. A quick one. Alec Jacob, who's a Spokane native. I've spoken to him. He's a Gonzaga alum. He pitched for Italy, 1 1/3 scoreless innings for Brazil, which I think is kind of fun. That is one thing that I do love about, and you mentioned the electrician, just random people showing up and playing baseball well. Like it feels very cinematic, almost like, for the love of the game or something like this. But this is the other one. So, David, if you'll notice, I'm wearing a hat too. You got the Netherlands hat. I got the Puerto Rico hat.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking, I'm a man of simple things, David, right? Like once I have a thing, I buy a lot of that thing. So years ago, I got a shirt. It's a certain kind of dress shirt. I bought it in 2011 because I was in a wedding. I have 16 of those now, right? They're just different colors, different designs. But once you find a shirt that you like, you just buy it, right? Like I'm a man, I'm 40. Like I can just see my vest, see my vest. See my vest. Well, there was a vest. It went over it too. Anyway, another thing that I have is I always wear my jeans. I buy my jeans from the same place. Like I am a creature of habit, right? And so I go to the MLB shop, to buy a Puerto Rico hat or some hat. And I get it, but it has this M crown description. And you have one of these. Do you not feel like the M crown is like more pronounced? And like, I feel like it has made my forehead taller. Do you have a complaint? Do you have this complaint about this M crown hat?
Yeah, I don't have many of them for that reason. I actually don't really like the way that they feel, but I do like the way that they look. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky for me, Dan.
I want to like flatten it onto my head, like if I could just glue it down a little bit. And I showed other people. I pulled out like multiple hats, and they looked at it, and they looked at me like I was like yelling at the sun, like that there was nothing here that was different. Which made me think of two things. David, if I say these two names, can you hear the difference? Dante. Do you hear a difference?
No, Dan, I don't.
Because that's the reaction that people give me when I talk about the hat being, like they don't. And then I was at REI, and this man walked up. He walked up to the return spot. It's a very generous return system they have at REI. And he walked up and he was complaining about these shoes and how they, like the new version, he was like me. Like he'd bought like the same shoe, but like every year and gotten the same copy, but the newest one, if that makes sense. And he said that they'd like changed something in their formula. Like it wasn't the same anymore. And I was looking at that man and I was thinking, this is me, but about hats. Like nobody cares. It's just me complaining about this M crown. Nobody cares, David.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Sorry.
Dan, I don't exactly know how to respond to this. I understand that. I appreciate that when you find something you like, you stick with it. This has gone maybe a couple of steps too far. I'd say like, I don't know what % of your life is dedicated to this crusade, I guess, against the M crowns. And it would be different, I think, Dan, if every hat being made at this juncture was an M crown hat, but that's
what it seems like though, because when you look at the new hats and it's the new ones, and now I'm gonna have to like go to like the backup store for New Era to find like hats from. I'm gonna be like on eBay buying hats from 2023 that were pre M crown, and I'm gonna be shouting at the stars.
Well, Dan,
David,
you're no stranger to destroying hats. I mean, the Minnesota 4th of July hat that you cut.
I cut
the most
little,
distinguished
the
feature off of,
the
Dan,
silly,
which
so
was
silly,
ridiculous.
David, that bead. David, it's an accent, and it just looks ridiculous to me.
It's what makes that hat so good, and it makes it stand out. And like, you ruined it. You absolutely ruined that hat. It's embarrassing. I don't understand how you can complain about the M crown and then literally take a razor blade to a different hat that you've purchased, Dan.
All right, well, I can complain, David, and I'm going to. We should move forward here. We have other things to talk about. Quickly, Zach Littell, who apparently the Twins were in on him, just like they were in on, Framber Valdez, is that his name? He signed a 1-year, $7 million deal with the Washington Nationals. Do you wish the Twins would have signed a starter here? This is a good transition, I think, into Twins updates.
Not really. It's just so hard. I mean, they have basically 6 guys at this point to fill 5 rotation spots. At least 4 of them should be decent. I don't know how good Zach Littell is going to be. And honestly, so much of the season is just figuring out what you have. And in order to figure out what you have, Dan, you got to let him play. So I say no. Yeah, if we were talking about a much better frontline starter, sure, let's go for it. But Zach Littell is not going to make this team a playoff team overnight.
And then to some Twins notes, there was a scare, if we can call it that, a Buxton injury scare where he got hit. It seems on the funny bone, as it turns out, on his arm. He's okay. He ended up continuing to, not in that game, but he continued to play throughout. Also, apparently Joe Ryan is also going to be playing here in the World Baseball Classic, or at least it's still on the table. So those are the two guys there. Do you want Joe Ryan to pitch in the World Baseball Classic?
I think at this point, the injury actually makes the timing make a little bit more sense. Like he's ramping up at this point anyway, after he had to be shut down because of his back inflammation or whatnot.
He's got a back problem.
But so looking at his timing as far as pitching in the World Baseball Classic, and because they already have these limits set on guys anyway, I have less of a problem with it now, just because of the way the timing works out. He's going to have to pitch in live game anyway. Wouldn't you rather have him pitch in a game that sort of matters as opposed to the spring training simulation games?
Yeah, I think I like that too. I think I'm fine with that. Another Twin starter, Bailey Ober, has made a clean first outing. A fastball hit 91, which for him is pretty dang good. So I think we'll take that. But again, there are questions about Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan a little bit. I think Ober more than Ryan at this point, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, his fastball's up there now as far as his velocity. I mean, he's never been a speed throw type guy, but hitting 91 at this point in spring, the guy just has to stay healthy, Dan. And Bailey Ober, I think he could return to form. He could be the number 2 guy, assuming that somebody else like Taj Bradley, who's looked really good, or Mick Abel, who's looked really good in the spring, doesn't jump up to that spot. I think that Bailey Ober is going to be just fine.
And then a few other notes here. So Derek Shelton is like us, apparently. He says he doesn't even know who's going to close games for this Twins team. Is that a problem, do you think? Or could a closer by approach actually be an okay thing?
It's never a good idea, Dan. You should have a guy who you can turn to, who you're always confident in is going to at least give you a chance. And when in Twins history have we ever had a closer by committee system work, Dan?
I mean, there was that time when Emilio Pagan was closing games occasionally. Wasn't that didn't work out very well?
No,
did it?
Dan, that didn't work out.
Yeah, probably not. I think somebody will emerge, right? I mean, is that just a way for him to say that, where it's like right now it's an open audition, but at some point Taylor Rogers takes the job, or any of these other guys?
I think there's a good chance that Taylor Rogers gets the job just because he's been there before. And at this point, that's about all you need on the resume to pitch for the Twins. Now, every single article coming out of Twin spring training, Matthew Leach and a couple of the other beat guys, Dan Hayes and whatnot, they're all talking about how they expect the Twins to make moves. They expect them to try and move Trevor Larnach, and especially they expect them to bring in a right-handed reliever who is going to be your closer. The problem is, there's not a free agent right-handed reliever right now who's available who would be number 1 in your bullpen. So that means you got to swing it via trade or do something to bring another arm in. I just don't know what sort of caliber player are you getting without actually giving up something of value. And there's just not much out there, Dan.
No, I don't see any of that happening. I think they're just going to go with internal guys, which makes the move like Marco Raya being sent down to the minors with a bunch of other guys a little bit of a surprise. Because I think if you're going to have a guy emerge, it's going to be a young guy, I would think. And David Festa's injury obviously was a factor too. I just think a young guy is going to have to step up and be a closer if there's going to be that, the Johan Duran kind of equivalent now from a couple years ago.
I mean, right now, the way I have the relievers, I have Topa, Sands, Orsi, Rogers, Banda, Funderburk, Chafin, and Hendricks. So you got 4 lefties there, Dan. But the thing is, I don't know what else you're supposed to do. Like, if those are your best relievers, would you rather have your best relievers, or would you rather have the right arms, I guess, and hope that the matchups work out for you?
I think I'm with you. You want the best players. You want the best pitchers, and you just kind of... I think sometimes it gets overcomplicated with the matchups, right? Especially with the 3-batter minimum. Like, at some point, guys just got to get other guys out. And I think Shelton is a little less beholden to the metrics than maybe Rocco was. I think he's willing to kind of like... He's talked about this in interviews where he kind of lets instinct take over a little bit more. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think sometimes there was just too much of the... we talked about it. I mean, the reverse split seemed to flummox Rocco. Like, it was the easiest way to fool the man.
No, hell, they've got it backward. Tell them to turn it around.
Yeah, I do wonder, too. A couple of guys have written about Zach Kent, who was a reliever option who the Twins had picked up. And so he's on the 40-man. He's been excellent so far in spring training, I guess. He's got 6 strikeouts, no walks, 1 hit, no runs in 3 innings. So looking at him, it's a possibility that he could claim a spot and maybe he makes some noise in this bullpen. But it's just so difficult. How frustrated are you going to be if we do see Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis, Matt Wallner, Trevor Larnach all take step forwards and they're scoring a ton of runs per game, or at least they're keeping it close, I guess, not a ton of runs necessarily, but you get to the point where a closer or high leverage reliever guy is necessary and they falter in that spot again and again and again. Again, I don't really think that's really realistic about what's going to happen, but I'm just saying if it does, if the Twins are sub 500 by the All-Star break and they've lost, let's say, 15 games because the bullpen couldn't figure it out, how annoyed are we going to be, Dan?
Well, it would certainly give us an I told you so from all those moves that they made last summer to trade off, Louis Varland, Johan Duran, people like that. A couple other things, so Kalen Culpepper, Aaron Sabato were sent down, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Gabriel Gonzalez. I mean, there are guys that we expect to see. I do think that they will end up taking the spots of some of these veteran guys once the season kind of sorts itself out. You have a good question here about the backup shortstop. And I feel like we're looking at the same roster issues for months now, right? You brought up the crowded outfield. The options right now behind Brooks Lee are Kreidler, Arcia, and maybe even Gio Urshela. If you had to pick one, who'd you pick?
Probably Kreidler, because he's probably the most skilled at the shortstop position. But the thing is, all of these bats are inconsequential. I was looking at Arcia's numbers to try and figure out, okay, when was the last time that he was good? And it was 2023 was a pretty good season for him, but it was still a 1.7 WAR, and he's not getting back to that. That was an anomaly, most certainly. And so really what you need is a guy who's going to bat ninth in the lineup, and he's not going to screw it up in shortstop if Brooks Lee gets injured or he needs a day off. And it's just a bummer because none of these guys would you want to see in the lineup unless that's exactly the circumstance that they're going to be used, is strictly as a defensive replacement for Brooks Lee on days where Brooks Lee can't go. But that just seems like such a waste of a roster spot where you're bringing a guy only, there's no other circumstance where you want to see him on the field.
Yeah, I think I'd much rather see that go to a young guy. I mean, it feels like a 1997 Twins roster in that way, where you've got, Pat Mears, who's kind of over his, peak. And his peak wasn't that great. So that's why I think we'll see Culpepper in May or June. You have to at some point. It doesn't make any sense otherwise. But it still is weird. I don't know. And then the outfield. So then, as the more that I read here, it sounds like James Outman is actually having a pretty good spring here, and that Alan Roden has an option and Outman doesn't. And so logically, you would think that maybe it's going to be Outman and not Roden, because I think these are how these decisions get made. It's just who has the options, which is the least interesting, but it's much more strategic of a choice. So do you think we've seen the last of James Outman, or is he going to actually make this team?
No, I mean, the way that people are talking about him, he made some pretty aggressive swing changes in the offseason, and he's had quite a bit of pop at the plate. So I think that they go with the hot hand at this point. And like you said, right now it might be more of a business decision, just hey, Roden's got options. And yeah, he's looked good this spring, but he's not the guy. And I think the problem then becomes you're really choosing between Austin Martin and Alan Roden. But here's the thing. Austin Martin bats righty, and you can't have any more lefties on this team. I don't understand this, Dan. When you look at this roster, the number of L's that I have all over this roster, whether that be in the bullpen,
which bat they swing, which side of the bat they swing with, or
it's just
how many losses they're going to have here in the standings, David.
It's a lot of L's, certainly, Dan. But yeah, it's a very confusing lineup, and they haven't done a very good job of putting together puzzle pieces that, even if their only goal was to field the team, to see what the guys have who are young and up-and-comers, it just doesn't seem like, well, why wouldn't you at least have guys to play the proper positions so they can actually do that for you?
Well, the funny thing is that Wally Jenkins is a lefty and Rodriguez is a lefty. So they have more, some of their best prospects are left-handed hitters in the outfield as well. So it's just it's this weird obsession, or it's just kind of how the chips fell. Now, can you make the argument that some of that stuff is overblown and self-fulfilling?
Not necessarily. The problem with lefties is because lefty versus lefty is the worst statistical category for hitters, no question. So if a team is starting a lefty, Dan, your lineup, I don't know that you can make it with enough righties and switch hitters to actually field the team. You're going to have lefties on there. The problem problem is we don't have lefties who are good enough to like play every day. Like all of the lefties we have are platoon players. And so that's where it gets most frustrating, is that other people are like, well, yeah, a lot of teams have lefties who play every day. Well, yeah, the Twins don't have that. The last guy who they had who was a play every day left-handed hitter, Dan, do you know who that was?
Max Kepler?
Well, okay, I was giving you an opportunity to bring up Joe Mauer, but that works.
Oh, or Eddie Rosario? These are all guys you could choose from.
Yes, that seems totally reasonable suggestions here, Dan.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there.
Good old Joe, living his best life right now, coaching, Little League softball and various other things.
He's doing it, Dan. Well, I think that should get us out of here, Dan. 2 weeks away, I think we'll have another episode, and then we should record another movie review here, folks. So again, I'm going to push that Patreon, Dan. I want our numbers pumped up here. We got to pump these rookie numbers up here, getting ready for the season. See what we can do for the listeners here. Again, thanks so much for listening, folks.
Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please do tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.